Welcome to the Kingdom Footprints podcast, a place where the footprints of faith are traced across the nations and the stories of God's work are brought to life through the voices of FMI workers around the world. In today's episode, we get to travel to New Zealand and hear from FMI workers Kevin and Jessica Harkins. Kevin and Jessica have a passion to partner with pastors and leaders to catalyze multiplying movements of disciple making across the South Pacific. To do this, they are taking a multifaceted approach, which you will get to hear in full during this episode. They minister locally to young adults through a house church network, train up future missionaries through a 10-month program they've created called Missions Immersion, and travel throughout the South Pacific, encouraging and training leaders. But before we jump into the conversation, if you find this episode encouraging, would you do me a favor and hit that subscribe button from wherever you're listening? That simple thing ensures that you don't miss an episode, and it helps us get this good news out to others. Now, on to my conversation with Kevin and Jessica. So thanks, guys, for joining me on the Kingdom Footprints podcast. I am so excited to have you guys on with me today.
Well, thank you, Stacey, for having us. We're excited about this. We're excited about just more stories from FMI going out to our global family and seeing what God stirs up as a result of that. So yeah, thank you for having us.
Yeah, it's an honor. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's just get started. Kevin and Jessica Harkins. You guys are in Nelson, New Zealand, right? I love New Zealand. I've been there one time. Remind me, is Nelson on the North Island or the South Island?
It is on the very top of the South Island.
Okay. I think I was on the North Island. Is that where, I don't remember. Anyways, yes. Okay. Yes, that's where I was at. Sorry. I did a really cool, tubing experience, where I got to, go and, see glowworms and stuff. It was pretty cool.
Waitomo Caves for sure. It's awesome.
Yes.
Well, now you gotta come back and come to the South Island because
South Island, it's better than the North Island.
It's better? Why? What makes it better than the North Island?
Oh, so many things. Just the rugged beauty down here is another level, honestly. North Island is beautiful, but it just goes to another level down here.
Think about the big mountain peaks in Lord of the Rings. That's all the South Island.
But then we also have tropical rainforest areas and turquoise ocean and gold beaches it's just stunning.
That's awesome. So what's your favorite part about Nelson?
Okay, are we talking spiritual or just?
Yeah, just in general. Just is there the best coffee shop you've ever had? What do you love about just kind of being there?
Well, carnally, let's start there first. Get that one out of the way, because we both love the outdoors and we are surrounded by several national parks that we can get to really easily and go out and do hiking and trekking in just some of the most beautiful, pristine nature. It's just mind-boggling. It's so beautiful. And the community, the culture here is very outdoors minded, very health, fitness, just enjoying God's creation. And so we love that. That is amazing.
Yeah, that's enticing.
It is. And then the other thing that we love is that it's really diverse.
Yes.
So that this city and a lot of cities in New Zealand, there's so much immigration coming into New Zealand from all over the South Pacific, all over Asia, from also even North America. So we've got this microcosm of diversity right here in the middle of New Zealand. So we've got a lot of great restaurants as a result of that too, but just the people group that we get to mix with. It's a refugee resettlement city as well in New Zealand. So we have a lot of refugees in our city. So it's very diverse. Our kids get to go to school with kids from all these different nations. And we love that. We love ministering in such a diverse climate.
Yeah, we're learning so much about people from all over the world here. We never expected it. And it's just been so beautiful to see God's different expressions in these different cultures and just getting to know the people. We've learned so much. It's been amazing.
That's awesome. So remind me, how long have you guys been in Nelson?
We've been here for 2.5 years almost.
Mm-hmm. And then we were in Auckland for 3 years before that. So 5.5 years total now in New Zealand.
Okay. So let's kind of back up a little bit before we jump into ministry things and kind of what God's doing right now. What got you to New Zealand? Because I know we have a history, I don't know if we were at the same time, but just at the Rock in Anaheim, you were there, California, went out to Kalamazoo area, right? How did you get to New Zealand? Tell me that story.
Yeah, I think I'd even back up. For me, it started, I grew up in a Foursquare church in Northern California in the Bay Area, in Danville specifically. But I was that kid who like did not want anything to do with church. I was dragged to church on Sundays and was really just into school, was in academics, into soccer. Ended up at UCLA for undergrad and had an encounter with God at Cru. So on campus ministry, was at a retreat with Cru. God just really changed my life, like drew me to himself. I got really passionate about the word, passionate about telling people about him. And I was watching a short-term missions video at this retreat for Cru, and I knew I was called to the mission field. So I'm 19. I'm studying to become a lawyer, like on track for that. And God just intersects my life and pretty much tells me, like, I have an assignment for you. Are you going to choose my path for your life? Or are you going to choose your own path that you're walking right now? And so I'm like, no, I want your path. And so that just started leading me on the journey of starting to walk towards ministry and towards the mission field. So long story short, I ended up at The Rock with Jerry and Kimberly Dearman when I was 21, started interning, came on staff, and then became a pastor, helped plant some of the satellite campuses with The Rock, but always knew, like, I have this call to missions. I know it's what God has for me, but I just didn't know how to step out in it. I didn't know how to get started. There wasn't really a clear pathway at that time, even with FMI as a very young adult. How do I get to the mission field? And I had wanted to do YWAM, but the Lord told me very specifically, I don't have that for you. I want you to stay at The Rock, get trained up, and I'll make a way for you to go overseas. And so that's kind of where my missions journey started. And Kevin and I ended up meeting. He was pastoring at another Foursquare church in Brea. Well, I was at The Rock in Anaheim. We ended up meeting, dating, and on probably one of our first couple of dates, I had kind of the DTR with missions. I was like, all right, like, if you want me, like, this is God's call on my life. I know I'm called to the missions field. I was a missions pastor at The Rock at the time. And you can tell him your response.
Well, for me, it wasn't that I had this clear calling. I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. I just knew I wanted to serve Jesus. And so it was very simple for me at that moment, just say, well, I just want to do what the Lord wants me to do. And I will go wherever he sends me. And so that was satisfying enough for her.
You wanted the girl, so you'd go, right?
Yeah, I never had that moment, even now, where God's like, yeah, I've called you to be this missionary. I'm just following Jesus, and it's an honor and a privilege. He's brought us here to New Zealand, which was never something either of us ever had dreamed about. When you're going to be a missionary and the Lord's calling you out to the nations, New Zealand's like the place where it's like, oh, that'd be a cool place to go visit. Yeah. It's not like the place where people think, yeah, they need Jesus, we should go there.
Yeah, for sure.
They do. We've learned that since we got here. Incredibly. Like there's a great need for Jesus in this nation. It is far from God. But when you're thinking about missions, you're thinking like, oh, Bangladesh or, India or something along those lines. And so it was a journey for us to get here.
Yeah, we just felt like the Lord told us to go. We were pastoring a church in Hesperia, California. And in a conference, the Lord spoke to both of us in different sessions and just said, now's the time. I was pregnant with our second kiddo at the time. And we just were like, okay, we're going to step out. We don't know where. Like, he didn't tell us where at that point. He just said it's time to go. So we went to our senior pastors and started approaching FMI. Like, we feel ready to deploy. And then through just relationship, it really was relationship. God opened up the door through Jerry Stott, Global Associate Director for the South Pacific. And he said, we'd love for you to be in this area because we wanted to do discipleship training. That's what we had been doing for a long time in different nations with The Rock. And so Jerry said, come and base in New Zealand was one of the options he gave us. And again, like Kevin said, it was nothing that we ever thought. I was kind of disappointed. If I'm honest, I did my master's in international development. I wanted to go to Bangladesh. That was like my heart's desire. And so, but we prayed, we just continued to take every step before the Lord in prayer. And we really felt like he confirmed, no, New Zealand is where I want you to be. And so we had a 1 and a 3-year-old when we finally deployed 19 and landed in Auckland 5 months before COVID. So that was our deployment journey.
Golly, that had to have been a interesting thing. So did you guys stay in New Zealand during COVID and all that, or did you come back to the States?
No, we stayed and we were locked in. The borders were closed. We could have left, but if we did, we couldn't have gotten back in. And so we chose to stay and to serve in Auckland.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I want to kind of go back to something that you were hinting at, Kevin, of that New Zealand needs Jesus, right? Like everyone has this idea and this perspective of it's a first world country. They don't need Jesus, this and that, like poverty's not there, whatever that might be, whatever theologies and mindsets people get. But talk to us a little bit about what is that spiritual climate of New Zealand, or specifically like Nelson, just kind of like, what did you guys walk into?
Yes, New Zealand, it's so interesting. It's such a beautiful nation. It is a first world country. You would think people don't have all these issues, but the reality is there's a lot of hopelessness here. There's a lot of apathy here. There's definitely a post-Christian mentality where, my grandparents went to church, and
Yeah.
there had been moves of God here, great moves of God. And so, there's a lot of the older generation that still is in church, but that's not passed down. And a lot of the youth today, they've not grown up in church. And they just think it's passe. They don't want much to do with it. And you won't really find them, if you give them an invitation to go to a church building, you won't find them being enticed by it.
Yeah.
They're just like in the workplaces from friends we've heard about, who work in the secular environment, that it can be really awkward to bring up your faith. Like people really will talk down or, question you in critical ways. And so,
Wow.
there's definitely a need here in this nation.
Yeah, New Zealand has one of the highest suicide rates with youth. And I think that speaks to there's really a mental health crisis here with young people. And again, it is shocking because there's great social services. It's a beautiful country, but I think just not having purpose, like not having an eternal reality that you're living for, you see the effects of that. It's over, I think we're at like 53% non-religious in New Zealand at this point. And it's under 10% church attendance. And I'd say with young people, it's a lot smaller than that too. So it's on a sharp decline. It has been for the last 50 years. But you're starting to see the effects of that in society.
Sure. Wow. So, 53% not churched or not religious. That is a huge percentage. So and I'm sure it's changed over the past 5 years that you guys have been there, but even as of like right now, what is the strategy that the Lord has put on your heart and put before you to reach these people and to reach these young people?
I think, like Kevin mentioned, when we were in Auckland, we saw how hard it was to do attractional kind of Sunday morning ministry and to get young people in the door. Like it was just, we did the big events, we did the flyering and the social media posting and all of that. And we were just seeing so little fruit as a result of that. And this was all also, during COVID, and we were beginning to learn about disciple making movements and how the church was spreading in places like India and China, in the global South. We were hearing about, these movements of house churches and how people were all getting trained up to be disciple makers. Art started to really catch fire. Like, man, we think this is what we need here. Because again, we're not seeing kind of traditional forms of ministry be as effective with this younger generation. They're not interested in going to a church building, like Kevin said. So we thought, but what if we do ministry different? What if we start to do ministry maybe not on Sunday mornings? What if we do it, on another night of the week? We started on Saturday nights here in Nelson. What if we start doing it in our home and we make it very centered around community and food and fun and conversation? Those were the things that started to drive our strategy here now, is that we've started a house church network here in Nelson that really the focus is youth and young adults. So not that we don't still have some older generation coming in too, but they know like our focus here is that we are trying to reach those that are younger, youth and young adults, and create an environment where they feel seen, they feel welcome. And if they are just on a spiritual journey where maybe they're just curious, they're going to feel comfortable here in the dialogue and the expression of love that we have even in our teachings. And so that's been how we've started here in Nelson, and we've been doing it for the last 2.5 years. So we have 4 gatherings now, 2 in homes. Again, none on Sunday mornings. We got one on Saturday night, one on Monday night, and then we've got 2 other gatherings that are happening out in schools. One at a local high school and one at the local. And one of the things that we say too is everything we do, we want it to be reproducible, because we don't want to create a form of ministry where people come in and they feel like, oh, if I ever wanted to do this where God sends me, I need to be a pastor. We want them to have an accessible form of ministry where they feel like, oh no, I can go do this in my neighborhood. I can go do this at my workplace. And so the way that we do Bible study is really, that's foundational to us, is multiplication and reproducibility.
That's awesome. Dude, I love that. And I see the same thing here in Belize of, I say to people all the time, like, there are so many that would never darken the door of a church building, but they'll meet me on a football pitch or a basketball court or volleyball court. And so I use sports as that in route, basically church on a court,
Yeah.
And so I love that kind of out of the box thinking and mentality that I think a lot of, I don't know, I just kind of think it's where missions is shifting to, like just kind of as a whole, right? It used to be this, you go to a country, you plant a church, that's what it is, right? And it's kind of, I don't know, like searching scripture, I don't see a lot of like, let's build church buildings, right? You see, let's make disciples, right? So I love that is your guys's kind of focus and mentality, we're part of the Foursquare movement as FMI workers. And for those that don't know, FMI stands for Foursquare Missions International. And, I've been thinking a lot about our founder, right? Amy Simple McPherson. Mm-hmm. And I was reading a biography about her. And the thing that I kept noticing, right, is that she never set out to start a movement. Like she never set out to start a denomination or to plant churches. She was dedicated, right, to the worldwide interdenominational evangelism of the gospel, right? Yeah. And I don't know, that just really struck me because I'm like, okay, wherever she went, it wasn't about church building. It was about disciple making, which is what Jesus is about. And so I love that that's what you guys are really focusing on and taking it kind of to some new levels. So kind of along that same thing, right? Like you guys are in leadership development, raising up people to launch house churches potentially, but you're also working, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's not necessarily with FMI, but you guys have started your own discipleship internship program called Missions Immersion, right?
Yes.
That's correct. Yeah.
Awesome. So tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I think as you heard Jessica say in her story, when she wanted to get on the mission field, she was thinking about going to YWAM because that was one of the only ways to get on the mission field as an easy access point for a young person. I had even had a similar thought myself when I was young. I'd gone to Life Pacific and afterwards knew that I needed to get out of the country and do ministry and see more of the world. And I thought about YWAM, but again, the Lord said no. Ended up finding another route in Amsterdam, working at a Christian youth hostel. But so we both kind of had a similar experience because there wasn't a way in Foursquare to where we could get experience with missions in an easy way that would equip us. And so our hearts, before we even came over to New Zealand, was for training and equipping young people and creating a pathway where we could invite them to join us and to experience what missions was like. And when we finally got to move down to Nelson, we knew it was time to begin that. And that's where we launched Missions Immersion.
Yeah, one of the things that is unique about New Zealand, and again, this is something we found out after we deployed, or right before we deployed, is that they have something called a working holiday visa. So they have a 12-month long visa for young adults between 18 and 30, where they can come and they can actually work here for a year and live. And it is super accessible and really cheap.
Wow.
So that's a big deal to be able to go abroad and work while you're abroad. And so they've just it up as a nation to do that. So we were like, oh my goodness, like this is such an opportunity for us to bring over young adults, to give them experience on the field. And I think also something that really shaped our launch of Missions Immersion too, is that we did have a hard go of it for the first 3 years of deployment. We went through COVID, we had young kids, learning how to work with a national leader, learning how just to do life abroad. It was not easy. So we went through a really stretching 3 years, choosing over and over again to stay in the will of God, to not go home, and just realizing how much resilience, how much emotional health we needed to flourish on the field. And so we started realizing like, this is not easy. How do we make a pathway for young adults, not just to get experience cross-culturally, but also to learn how to build resilience so that when they deploy as healthy, long-term workers committed to the call of God and equipped to be able to stick with the call of God.
So good.
Once they're actually on the field. And so the program that we've developed it's really 15 months. We do 5 months of pre-deployment training with them, where we're meeting every week on Zoom for 90 minutes, where we go through 4 different books through that 5-month window. We're talking every week from fundraising to logistics to how to find a job, what apartment, or, where do they want to live? Because we're wanting to give them a real experience of deployment. We don't have a base like YWAM, and that's very intentional for us because we want them to really have to figure things out, but with safety, with coaching, with mentorship.
Sure.
Of, okay, where is the Holy Spirit leading you? What kind of work are you going to do? And how is God going to use your vocation to reach people? And so we have that 5 months with them. And then they do come out and they're with us for 10 months while they're here. And we really do make it that they're not just coming to do what we're doing. They're coming to be trained, but to learn how to build something themselves. And so that's why we use these gatherings, house church gatherings in schools. These have all gotten started for the most part by our Missions Immersion students, where they've caught a vision for the community. They've started to invest in the community, build relationships, start disciple making, and start a gathering. And so they're getting real hands-on experience of what it's like to build ministry on the field, get something started by the leadership of the Holy Spirit. And then even how to raise up others and pass it off before they come back to the States or deploy elsewhere. So it's been a fun journey. We're just about to graduate our 2nd class right now. So in total, by the end of this year, we'll have graduated, I think, 11 over the course of the time that we've been here in New Zealand. And it's been amazing. I think it has been amazing to see what God's been doing through each one of their lives.
Definitely.
Yeah. The effects that are happening locally, but then also what God's calling them to globally as well.
That's awesome. Yeah. So before we get too far down, if there's anyone who's like listening that maybe wants to be a part of Missions Immersion, how would they get contacted with you? And we can put this down in the show notes for sure, but just real quick, like what does that process kind of look like?
Yeah, I'd say the best way is to go to our website, go to missionsimmersion.com, because there you're going to find out all the general details about the program, as well as there's the link there to reach out to us if you're just interested in setting up a conversation. But there's also a link to apply. We've got a class that'll be launching next year in July 2026. And so I would say, I think that one thing that is also unique about Missions Immersion for those that are out there listening is that this is for those that do have some kind of a sense of calling towards mission or cultural ministry and have had some discipleship already. So this is, we're not entry level discipleship. This is missions training and to equip you to get ready for long-term deployment.
And a little bit of maturity and being able to adult will really help as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Because this isn't, like you said, this isn't just like a YWAM, which love YWAM. It's a great thing, but it's not like you go live on this base. Everything's kind of insular. It's like, you have your own apartment. You've got to go get a job. You've got to go like do life.
They do the majority of their week without us. We see them a couple times a week. And so there's a lot of self-motivation that is required, but it's been beautiful to watch as they've taken it intentionally and as they've, whether it's in their own housing locations, reaching the people that they live with or in their workplaces. It's just been a different experience with each of them and fun to watch how the Lord uses them.
Yeah, that's awesome. So can you tell me kind of like a transformational story of maybe somebody who has come to a house church, a disciple making process, not necessarily someone from Mission Immersion, but just even a local or someone who's just planted and living there. What's God been doing through all this?
Absolutely. I'm reminded of one story of a young man who's Thai, but he grew up here. His parents had immigrated from Thailand, and he was really good friends with another young man who's been in our community and just helps us with leading worship, and he's really passionate. He's one of those guys, same as Tamu. He just is a magnet. People follow him wherever he goes. And so this other young man named Coco, he just was one of his friends and started coming along. And I started a little Bible study with Tamu, and then Tamu invites Coco. And so we start reading the Bible together. He had no context for the Word of God or anything. And then not too long later, he started coming to our house church. He was super nervous. He was just out of his comfort zone, but he felt welcomed and loved. And it was about 5 months. I think about 5 months later, actually, while we were away, He was at a Christian conference with the team, with Tamu, gave his heart to Jesus. And we've just been watching him come more alive, become more joyful, become more intentional about his faith. It's just been incredible to see the transformation from when he first started coming to the Bible study and to where he is now.
That's awesome. I love that.
And I'd say too that I think that story highlights even it still is missions immersion, because the way that even Tamu came was that our very first class decided to live in kind of this big boarding home. And in this boarding home, one of our current students back then, she started to befriend one of the boys that lived there. And that boy is the one who then introduced her to Tamu, and they started coming to our house church. And so just them living intentionally in the community is what kind of started this chain effect that ended up with Coco coming to faith. And now he has a sense of call to go to the army. And so we're just kind of investing into him, encouraging him as a community, and believing that he's going to be a light and kind of a missionary, a sent one, as he goes into the New Zealand Army.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that you guys are taking people like Jesus, taking them from where they're at, saying like, hey, you don't have to change. You don't have to be anything more than what you are in this moment, and loving them. And then taking them on this journey and introducing them to Jesus. The pastor of my sending church back in Florida, and I'm probably going to mess it up. Sorry, Jordan. But he has this mindset and this idea, right? And says like, if you never, like, you're welcome. Like, if you don't know Jesus, you're welcome. Like, still come. Be here. Like, we want you in our home. We want you in our church. We want you here. And it sounds, a lot of what you guys are doing, where it's like, because like you said, Gen Z and that whole generation and down is like the most post-Christian generation that we've seen. And so I love it. I love that you guys are doing that. And with Missions Immersion though, too, you guys don't stay just in New Zealand, right? Like, you guys take them on some short-term trips and stuff like that, right?
Absolutely. We're trying to take them on 2 different trips. One trip is usually to Fiji, because it's actually one of the most accessible places for us to go. And we have a great relationship with the Foursquare national leader there, and they've just opened their arms to us. And so we go there, we help them with crusades and going door-to-door ministry, and just however they would have us serve with them, we just jump at it. But then also we try to go to another South Pacific nation as well. And just a couple of weeks ago, I was able to take the team to Palau. Now, Palau is in the middle of nowhere. It is just surrounded by ocean. If you looked at a map and you were interested where it was, it's above Papua New Guinea, a couple hours, basically. Okay. It's this tiny, tiny little island nation. And we saw a hungry Foursquare family there that's just passionate about Jesus and desiring to reach their community. And we got to partner with them, again, doing a crusade, going house to house, doing some ministry, going to the hospital, even just pouring into them and equipping them. They don't, Fiji actually gets quite a few missions teams going to it, but Palau never basically gets a missionary going there, because it's really, really hard to get to. And so that was just a joy to pour into our Foursquare family there as well.
And I think our passion with these trips is that our Missions Immersion students are getting a lot of experience with ministering in a Western context here in Nelson. But taking them to the islands is completely different, especially in Fiji. There's so much different spiritual climate that they're working in. A lot of the door-to-door evangelism that we do is with Hindus and with Muslims. So they get to see a lot of deliverances, a lot of healings. It's just a completely different experience that we feel like is so beneficial. And then like Kevin said too, our other passion point with it really is to support our Foursquare family in the South Pacific. And we love working with Jerry and Julie. And we've developed, I feel like, a real family environment with all of our workers across the South Pacific, where we're updating each other, we're supporting each other, and we love to partner together. And it makes it so fun to be in this region of the world working as a team.
Yeah.
Really great thing about these missions trips too with the Missions Immersion team is we don't approach it as in there's me, the leader, and they're just serving and doing whatever. It's really an approach of how do I train them to be able to lead teams in the future? So they're given days to be in charge, to lead the team. They're given days to encourage and bring strength. And then I'm always looking for the opportunities to give them the ability to preach or teach or lead services. And so it's really to train and equip them to lead teams and to be the missionaries that are bringing other missionaries.
I love that. That's amazing. Yeah, I am having a growing heart for just the South Pacific. 2019 is when I was in New Zealand. I spent a month between New Zealand and then Australia. I had a friend that lives down there. And so like I loved it. I fell in love with the culture, the people, and so I could see how easy it is to fall in love with that area. But then even since my joining FMI, I've just gotten to know so many workers from that region. And yeah, I love you guys. I love what's going on down there. And I wish, and hopefully more people will learn about what's going on in the South Pacific, with what you guys are doing and what other people are doing, Bam and Helen and all those guys. So
well, you're helping with that. Thank you.
You're welcome. You are welcome. And hopefully, I can get out there. I would love, it may not be to the South Pacific because that's really far from Belize, but I would love someday to take a team of Belizean nationals on an international trip and just to get that immersion, that experience as well. So
I love that. This is actually our first year doing that too, Stacee. So we're running a short-term trip this coming September where we are partnering with a church out of California who's bringing some young adults, but then we're bringing some of our Missions Immersion team, but then also local. We're opening up to our local young adults, our house church. And so we're really excited because it's a first step for us too, to actually be taking the mission team from New Zealand over to Fiji.
I love that. And how has the response been for that? Like, how have the locals responded to that opportunity?
It's exciting. Like I told you, we are in a very international climate here. And so a lot of our house church, and I think this is important to hit on, is international students. So that's just a demographic that the Lord has opened up a door for us. And so on any given event, like we just had a baptism with 2 of our house church members this last weekend, and he was reflecting back, he's from China. He was reflecting back to me last night. He's like, at my baptism, I saw that we had 11 even different nations represented there.
Wow.
And different people from our house church. So that's a constant that we've got in any, small group that we're doing. We'll have someone from, like you said, Thailand, Fiji, from
Russia.
Yeah. It's constantly very diverse. So I think just having a community that is so diverse has piqued more interest and passion for the nations, because it literally is the nations coming together. Mm-hmm. With this missions trip, the ones that I've talked to who are local New Zealanders, they're like, yeah, they're excited. They're learning about new culture every day in our house church environment. And so it's piqued passion in them to go and to immerse themselves as well.
Gosh, I love that. I love that so much.
And I would, I think it has opened up our eyes to even opportunities in the States that we would encourage. If any pastor is in an area where they've got a local university that has international students, it really is the nations at your doorstep.
It is.
And for me, it's been full circle because we had international students in our home when I was growing up. And that really impacted me, just learning about, we had ones from Japan, from Spain, learning about other cultures as a kid. But then I went abroad. I was at UCLA. I took a year and I spent a couple months in Spain, a couple months in Chile, and I lived in, houses there. And now here we are, and we're working with international students. We've had international students living in our home. And these are young adults who their hearts are open. They're traveling the world. They're to open up our homes, support them, see what God will do. And then they become carriers. Like we've been sending people back to their nations. We've had someone go back to Nigeria that was with us for a while, back to Hong Kong, someone to Cambodia. So we're constantly not just bringing and raising up missionaries from the States, but because we're working with international students, we're raising them up and then sending them back to their countries of origin and seeing what God does with that too. So our passion for international students has just been growing the last 2 years. This is amazing. What an untapped opportunity to share the gospel and raise up goers with international students.
Definitely. They're so hungry for community. Yeah. They're just so open and ready. And so, if there's a pastor that's near any university, I just encourage you, go in and find out what's going on, how are the international students being ministered to or taken care of. They would just love to come over for a meal, just to be invited over to have an American dinner would blow their minds and just show them so much love that it could open up opportunities for them and the generations that follow them to know Jesus.
Yeah, you guys beat me to it. I was going to ask that of what what can we do to help our U.S. churches specifically, right? I'm hoping and praying and believing that this is going to go out past the U.S. church, but a majority of the demographic right now that's going to listen to this is probably U.S. pastors and churches. And you hit on it at part of it, but like, what would you say to encourage pastors who maybe like, we'll go to kind of, and it might be the same answer of one, we don't have a culture of missions like in our church yet, you know, like maybe it's a church plant or they're a young church. Maybe it's an older church. Like I actually spoke with a church last year who had been around for 50 something years. And at the time they just didn't have, because of the turnover of like congregation and stuff, they just didn't have a missional culture and they were wanting to rebuild that. And then the other side would be, you know, these churches that do have their eyes on the nations. What would you encourage them to do or to pursue to kind of shift their hearts towards the nations? You know, I think that all of us, right, at times can get so focused on like our insular, what are we doing day in and day out, and the ministry and the assignment that the Lord's given us for this time, that we sometimes lose sight of like the nations and the world, you know, especially, unfortunately, right, in the Western context. So how do we encourage and equip and just little nuggets? We're not going to fully train all of these pastors on this little podcast, but what would you say to those pastors on like how to just kind of shift their mindset and their eyes to the nations? You've already said one, right? Like if you're near a college campus, but what if they're not near a college campus? What would you say? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I'd first start with like the heart of us as individuals. Like, I think if there is not a passion in your heart for the nations, that's okay. That's something to acknowledge. But I think taking action steps to begin to open up your heart to what God is doing globally. And I'd say for pastors and leaders, I'd really recommend don't just send people on short-term teams, go yourself. I think if you really want to get, you know, the church obviously does, it's going to flow from, you know, the anointing from the head to the beard to the skirts, like we see in the word. So if your heart is passionate about the nations, then it's going to kind of flow through you down to the people in your body. And so, but if it's not there, I would encourage you, get on the field, you know, contact an FMI worker, go spend a week with them doing life in ministry and see what God is doing around the world. Because I think it is infectious once you step foot into these other countries and you start seeing how God is moving. I think that is, we call them vision trips. They're legit. They're important to take trips to open up your heart and your mind to what God is doing and to get it inside of you. Yeah. And I do think prayer is so critical. You know, what we pray for, we care about. And so being intentional, whether it's with our FMI prayer points or looking at Joshua Project, looking at resources to help you pray for nations is going to affect your heart and the heart of your leadership team as you lead them in doing that too, or your whole congregation in praying for the nation. It's going to affect your heart and your passion.
I think too, with Joshua Project, it's an incredible resource to help you understand the nations that are right around you. You can go on there and pull up a map of your area and it'll show you the different nationalities that live right around you. And it can be so easy for all of us to get insulated in our bubbles of our just known social dynamics that we have that we can miss out and not recognize there's these people that live in unreached people groups from around the world right here in our city. And then to find out, okay, where are they hanging out? Ask the Lord, where do I go?
Yeah.
Show me and give me a heart for the people you've brought to me because you've brought them here, that they may know you.
And maybe it's just trying to frequent an ethnic restaurant and being to ask questions and get to know the servers or the people who are there. That can be a foot into the nations. Yeah. Doing that. Or maybe you do know a neighbor down the street who is Muslim or from Afghanistan. You invite them over. You start having conversations with them. It will change you. Just relationship cross-culturally will change you and start giving you more of a passion for the nations.
That's so good. I love it. And we're not saying like, with these vision trips or going on, like, we're not saying, hey, you're going to come and then you're going to go to the nations and you're going to be a full-time worker. It's just saying like, no, just come and see, what the Lord is doing. That way, I love what you said, like what we pray for, we care for. And it's like what we see, then we know what to pray for. And then we know where our heart is being shifted and just kind of turned towards. It happened to me, right? Like even coming to Belize, I came here in 2019 and on a short-term trip. Like I didn't being here full time was not on my radar in 2019, even though I knew that the Lord had given me the nations. From 5 is when I first felt the call of the Lord or the invitation of the Lord to be international. And it wasn't until 2021 that I actually became a full-time worker. And, but coming to Belize, it was like, I've seen. And then during all of that COVID year, it was on my heart, and then when the Lord kind of gave me the green light, as I like to say, for going on international missions. Yeah, Belize wasn't necessarily like on my front radar, but I had already been praying over it. And that's where the Lord was like, here you go. So that's good stuff. That is some good stuff that you guys have. Living overseas is that there's sometimes some challenges, whether it is emotional or with kids or just plain missing something from the United States, right? So what is something over these past years maybe that has been kind of a hard thing for you guys? Because I know when I've had hard times, like sitting in my kitchen on the floor crying because I'm lonely, I'm like, they didn't tell me this in the missions brochure. Like, like there's some of those things that they don't highlight. They're not like, hey, become a missionary and then you get to do all of this. But it's in those moments that I think we get closer to the Lord, and I've found for myself, as hard as those moments are, I wouldn't trade them for anything.
100%.
So just to try and keep it real for people, like, do you guys have a story of something that was like, hey, this was really hard, or I didn't expect this, but God?
Only one?
Yeah.
I mean, we got time. Let's go.
Well, of course, we came to New Zealand expecting to be able to travel throughout the South Pacific to do discipleship training with pastors and leaders. Like that was 50% of our committed time, resources, everything was for doing that. And 5 months after we got here, we made one trip to Papua New Guinea, and 2 weeks after we got back from Papua New Guinea, everything shut down and we were locked in New Zealand for a little over 2 years and could not travel. And so yeah, that was a big blow for us. And that took some rearranging of expectations and some coming to the Lord and just questioning, like, why did you bring us here at this time? And what are we doing? And Lord, why is all this the way it is? It was definitely confusing.
Yeah. And I think in that time, like I mentioned, we realized how important emotional health is on the field. Emotional health is important regardless. But I think there is something about the mission field. You don't have your friends and family, you don't have your culture of origin to comfort you. And so if you have, undealt with issues, insecurities, poor coping strategies, it all comes out. It all comes out on the field. You kind of see yourself in, I guess, fresh ways. Like, wow. Like,
you find things that are there.
I think during that COVID time, we struggled with some hopelessness and depression in ways that we never even thought would ever be issues for us. Mm-hmm. And we had to learn new tools. And God was so gracious in that time. We went through emotionally healthy leadership with Trey Abney, who does cohorts with pastors in our Foursquare family. We went through it twice, I'm going to be honest, because we're like, getting out the first time. We both did counseling just to process our expectations, process our disappointments, process even the cross-cultural challenges we were having and what that was bringing up in us. And that's where I'm like, what you said, Stacee, I said 100%. I wouldn't take any of that back. It was so hard. And like I said, we had toddlers at the time. So we were also navigating parenting and COVID and our marriage and all of that. And yet God was so gracious. He taught us so much. And like I said, I love that word resilience now in a way I never thought I would love it, because I've just realized the endurance to stay with the call of God, to not give up, and to not blow up, to not get offended, stay abiding in Christ. And stay healthy as an individual, is so important. And so God did so much during that time. Another little thing that we learned was taking care of ourselves physically. That had been something that we kind of at first had by the wayside. We're prioritizing our kids, we're prioritizing the ministry, and we were not taking care of ourselves.
And to be honest, we hadn't learned that before we left the States either.
As pastors, we had always kind of been down list.
Definitely.
And so when we were struggling and going through those that COVID time, we both were like, we got to find a way to take care of ourselves mentally and physically. And so Kevin kind of led the charge in that. He started training for triathlons, which seems like, why would you do that as a missionary? But he realized, like, I need something that is life-giving, that helps me get space to myself, that fills my tank and takes care of my body. And when I saw him doing that, I'm a little bit competitive. So I'm like, I want to do something. And so I just started running. I started training for a half marathon back then. I thought I hated running, but I learned how to love it because it gave me time by myself. I got to put in some earpods, listen to podcasts, build my faith while also working on my body. And that's become a core value for us now. And that's something that we even really train our Missions Immersion team on too, is working on their mental, emotional, but their physical health while on the field, excuse me. Because we feel like that's so important.
You know, we are one. Our body is connected to our mind. We are all connected to our spirit. You know, it all interplays. And so we just recognized we weren't taking care of ourselves holistically. And by beginning to exercise, we found it helped us tremendously emotionally. It helped us tremendously, even spiritually, just to be in a better place, to even take that time to just take care of ourselves became not just like it's a nice thought. It just became a pillar in our lives. And we've seen the fruit of it. We've seen how it's built confidence in ourselves and strength to endure, that resilience that we've needed. We've learned so much from it. Like it's just a staple in our lives now.
Yeah, and it's also actually got us into more relationships in the community as well.
That's true.
Yeah. I mean, you just talked about that, earlier with yourself, that like people who aren't going to come to church. We found with actual Kiwis, so we work with a lot of internationals in our house church environment, but sometimes we have a harder time connecting with New Zealanders. One of the things that they do love is they love sports. And so that's why we can have you out here, Stacee, is help us with sports ministry.
Let's go.
But personally, like Kevin, as he's done triathlons here, it's been a great way for him to meet men, build a relationship. I joined a soccer team out here, and I find that is like the best way for me to meet women and to start building relationships with New Zealand women is through soccer. And so it's been cool how God's used it in a lot of different ways for us.
I love it. I have so many things. So my kind of a byline that I say all the time, because my main focus here is sports, right? But I say all the time, and I have shirts that say it. It says it's not just sports. Everyone thinks like, oh, you're just going out and playing, or you're just going. And like, no. It's way deeper than just sports, And so, I love that. And everything that you were saying about holistic health is literally the foundation of the ministry that I actually just launched under the Foursquare Church of Belize. It's called Pillar Collective. And it's that idea of we're one body, right? And there's 5 pillars of health. I mean, you said it, Kevin, you've got mental, emotional, spiritual, relational, and physical health. And if one of those is not in alignment, everything's out of alignment. But as soon as you start bringing that back up, you've witnessed it. So I love that. I also have had my time in triathlons back in the day. So maybe we could do like
Whoop, and I was wondering.
Yeah. It's been a long time since I have ridden a bike, but I'm trying to get back in. I just got my bike tuned up. You can't see it here, but I have a couple medals like from when I was in the States and stuff. But yeah, I love it. Those long rides and so good stuff. So you guys come to Belize and we have one triathlon a year in the whole country. Wow. So, and it starts at like 11, the hottest part of the day. It's awesome.
Pretty cool.
No, it's good though. So I love hearing that. You said triathlon, soccer, running. What are some things as we kind of come to a close? I kind of have 3 more questions. What are some things that you guys do as a family that bring life to you to help with that self-care Sabbath? Because like I said, you've got 2 little ones. Maybe they're not so little anymore, but what do you guys do as a family? What have you found that just gives you life as a family?
I'd say the first one you touched on, it is Sabbath. It is one day of the week where we are resting. We do not work. We are not checking emails or taking phone calls or having people over for ministry. It's just one day dedicated for us to rest and to be together and prioritize that. I think that's the first thing that we prioritize that helps bring us strength and unity and just depth of relationship as a family.
And then we do get outside. So we go exploring together. And like we said, we love New Zealand because it is beautiful. So just getting our kids outside, doing hikes together, going playing at the beach, and making that something that we're building into our rhythm. That we've got these little times away. We shared with you before the call. We just did one for 4 nights where we got away from as a family. And it's so life-giving for all of us, just because we do have a lot of people in our home all the time.
All the time.
And so we like to have these little pockets where our kids know they're going to have 100% of our attention. Yeah. We're going to have 100% of each other's attention. And we're really just going to kind of input into our family. So it's been really good.
I love that. I love that. So kind of as we close out, thank you so much for your time and just sharing what God's doing and in and through you guys down there in New Zealand. But as we kind of close, what would be some maybe like top 3 kind of prayer points? Like how could we pray and partner with you guys in prayer?
I think it's a big thing on our heart and our mind is just that the Lord would continue to lead us with wisdom with our house church network, with Jesus Way. We know this is a different form of ministry and we're still new at it. As far as we've had a lot of leadership experience doing your typical church model, but doing it in a house church and creating a network is different. And so we are still learning and growing and seeking the Lord and trying to do it better. And so for us, just that the Lord would give us that wisdom that's timely. And we know there's different seasons. And so just what season we're in, show us what the wisdom we need for this right now is a big one.
And then I think even, this podcast is a little bit of an answer to prayer to our second point. And that is, as we've built Missions Immersion, we really want to become accessible to the young adults within our movement within Foursquare. And that's not always the easiest to be able to just let it be known, getting it out there, that the Lord would bring in those young adults that are hungry to get trained for the mission field and looking for an opportunity like this, that the Lord would help us strategically develop the right relationships within our Foursquare family so that the young adults who God's calling to the field could possibly use this as a way to get them up and launched to wherever He is calling them to go. So I'd say that would be a second one. And then thirdly, I would say, just and the point of that, we would continue to, as a family, just see God help us establish ourselves here in New Zealand with an ongoing love and sensitivity to all the cultures that we're working with. And we realize, I think when you move abroad, you realize how American you are. Hard to articulate that when you're in America.
Unfortunately, yes.
We're so fortunately, and we're working with so many different cultures, and we just want to continue to grow in our humility and in our sensitivity to loving the nations and providing a safe place for all the nations to encounter Jesus here.
Yeah, that's so good. I'm going to put those down below. But as we wrap up, is there anything that we didn't talk about that you guys really wanted to say?
I think that I have so much hope in my heart for Gen Z. Like we talked about the stats, we talked about, that there's high suicide rates here, post-Christian, but what we're seeing, especially with our Missions Immersion students that have been coming in, I am seeing such a radical surrender to the Holy Spirit and to wanting to live on mission that I'm like, I don't feel like I saw this around me when I was in my 20s. I'm just seeing this wholehearted devotion to Jesus and willing that I feel like, man, there's a move of God here. I feel it raising up another generation of missionaries in maybe the last 50 years. And so I just have so much hope. I know we're sending out 3 students right now. One feels called because he literally just wants to go lay down his life for Muslims, for unreached people groups. We've got one who she feels like through her time here, she's met people from Japan, knows that God is calling her in that direction. A completely different culture for her, but just this willingness to go and do it. And then the other one that we're graduating out, he wants to come back and continue to partner and has helped pioneer this gathering that we're doing in local high schools and wants to see it multiply to other high schools. And again, just their fervency. I have so much hope for the gospel and for what God's doing. And I just think we're going to see some amazing things happen as we launch out this new generation of missionaries right now.
Definitely.
Yeah, I love it.
I think speaking to the pastors that will be listening to this, don't underestimate these young people.
Hey,
give
that's
them
the word right there.
To the table. Empower them. Let them make messes. Are they going to make messes? Yeah. And then surround them with love and help them to learn from it. There's just so much that they are willing to do and capable of doing if they have people who believe in them.
That's good. That's good. Don't underestimate this generation. It's so true because they can call out and see authenticity like in a heartbeat. Like they know if you're real or not. And if you're not, they want nothing to do with you.
True.
It's so good. Well, you guys, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to spend it with me, to kind of share what God's doing. How can people, couple things, right? How can people, get a hold of you? Like if they want to find you, whether it's email, are you on socials? Like we'll put it in the notes, but kind of how can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, great question, Stacey. I'd say in terms of just contacting us, email probably is the best. And we'll give those to you. It's Jessica at Solid Lives, Kevin at Solid Lives is a great way to be in touch. I am on social, so Facebook and Instagram. You can find me, Jessica I. Harkins, on both of those. And we also have a Missions Immersion Instagram as well, especially for young people who want to kind of check out what does this look like? What does life look like? We post lots of videos, lots of recaps of our ministry that they can check out. And like I mentioned earlier, we've got missionsimmersion.com and harkinsonmission.com, our overall website.
Hey.
We've got lots of ways to get in contact with us and see what we are doing and to become part of that team.
Cool. Yeah, and I'll be sure to put that all down in the show notes so people can just click. We'll make it nice and easy for you to partner with the Harkins. So you guys, thank you so much. I just pray a huge blessing over you guys and the ministry that the Lord has you on assignment down there in New Zealand.
So appreciate it.
Definitely. Thank you, Stacey. It's been a privilege to be on here with you.
Thank you for what you're doing and highlighting the work of FMI around the world. We're so grateful for this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks, you guys.
All right. God bless.
Friends, didn't you love hearing from Kevin and Jessica? Didn't you love hearing about what God is doing through Gen Z and the following generations in New Zealand? He is moving mightily through that generation, and I love how passionate Kevin and Jessica are about this next generation. I loved hearing about what they're doing through Mission Immersion and house churches and just disciple making. They live this in and out. You've heard me say it before, and that is, I'm not trying to beat a dead horse per se, but we as workers don't get to do what we do on the field. We don't get to do what the Lord's invited us to do without faithful partnerships like yourself in a financial sense. We appreciate your prayers. We appreciate teams coming and all of the things. But just being very real, that finances are a big part of how you get to partner with us. And the beautiful thing that I love as FMI is that we truly view every single person who sacrifices financially to fund what God is doing in the nations as a partner. That's what I tell. I'm a coach with FMI, and I help workers with their support raising and partnership development is what we actually call it. And it is something I tell them all the time. These people are partners with you in ministry. And so if what you heard today stirs your heart and you're like, I want to invest in the next generation, I would invite you to partner with Kevin and Jessica. You can go to their FMI Give page, which is give.foursquare.org/Harkins. And that, again, will be in the show notes. And join their monthly support team. One-time special gifts are important and valuable, and we appreciate those. But we also love when people come on a monthly partnership. That makes the biggest impact. So I just invite you, pray about it, see what the Lord might do. And the heart of this whole podcast is to just get people's stories out there, to first and foremost, let all of you guys know what God is doing in the nations. And then the second is, if the Lord stirs your heart to financially partner with one of these workers, so be it. Be obedient to what the Lord is saying, and you will be blessed. So until next time, remember to act justly, love mercy, and walk humbly with your Lord. You are on mission, no matter where you're at, whether it's in your backyard, across the street, or around the globe.